One National Guard soldier is dead and another is fighting for life after a shooting just took place blocks from the White House. According to the Times, the suspect is an Afghan man who worked with a CIA-backed paramilitary unit and came to the U.S. after the Taliban takeover. President Trump called Specialist Sarah Beckstrom savagely attacked, and as the Associated Press reports, used the killing to vow to, quote, permanently pause migration from all third world countries, even though this suspect was granted asylum during his own first term. That's right. The suspect, the killer, gained entree to the United States during Trump's first term. Decades of research show immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than U.S.-born citizens. A fact that you can say till you're blue in the face, but doesn't really change the immediate emotional, guttural reaction many people have in many politicians. That evidence rarely survives a bad headline. Authoritarians have always relied on this dynamic. You can go back multiple points in U.S. history and other history for examples. So, like in 1968, violence and clashes around the Democratic Convention in Chicago helped Richard Nixon sell law and order to anxious suburban moderates. It helped the Republican Party in 68 when there was violence coming from the other side. The more chaos people see, the easier it becomes to accept crackdowns that would once have seemed unthinkable. Okay, so what's the real message here? The Afghan migrant who killed the soldier in the United States near Washington, D.C., make no mistake about it, this is bad news, certainly for the family and the person killed. But it's bad news for anyone who believes that America should accept the best and the brightest from all over the world all the time. It's good news for authoritarians who are always looking, maybe even secretly hoping for violence as a way of cracking down, because it mobilizes public opinion in their favor. Let's go a little bit deeper here. Again, this is very bad news for people who care about the traditions of America. You can call me a conservative, you can call me overly conservative, but I happen to think what makes America great isn't just the strong dollar. It's not just our free market enterprise system that has more financial capital. It's our capital of bringing the best and brightest here from all over the world. We're able to pick the most motivated people who do whatever it takes to get to the United States. And now we have leadership saying we're just going to eliminate people from basically any poor country. Don't even bother to apply. Let's think about how that would have changed America if that had been the rule for, say, the last 60, 70 years. Well, for starters, no Apple, because Steve Jobs' own father came from Syria, not exactly a first world country then or now. You've got people like Sergey Brin, depending on how you want to categorize Russia back in the day. Okay, so you have no Google. You wouldn't have any of the top leadership today of Google or Microsoft because they came from India, which, while its economy is doing better, is not what Trump would say is a first order, certainly not a G7, G8 nation. So you would dramatically impoverish the United States if you could go back in time and say no immigrants and no one from, in Trump's words, third world nations. So this is a big problem. Again, our hearts go out to the family of Sarah Beckstrom, age 20. She did, in fact, die. The suspect is Ramanullah Rakanwal, who drove across the country and allegedly used a .357 revolver. He is someone who gained asylum because of his involvement in Afghanistan. So after the Afghan war, the United States said, look, if you helped members of the military, because the U.S. we were actively fighting the Taliban there. We did as we often do with situations like this. If you were an ally of the United States military, if you risked your life, and it was a life-risking activity, if the Taliban found out you were helping the U.S., they would kill you. And the procedure was, if you had proof evidence that you helped the United States military, you were able to gain special entrance to the United States. Now, this happens to be a subject I know a little bit about because I did, in fact, sponsor an Afghan refugee myself because he helped me and he helped spread the idea of educating women. That was an offense to the Taliban. And I, in fact, brought an Afghan refugee to the United States, was his sponsor. And I'm happy I did. And I'm also happy and sad about the fact that he was here for a week. This was several years ago, and said, TJ, thanks a lot. I'm out of here. The United States is showing essentially contempt. This is not his words, but the United States is making it really, really difficult for me. Canada is showing me open arm treatment. Canada invited this Afghan refugee. And this was a young man who, against all odds, educated himself, became an entrepreneur, created online courses with students around the world, made money, saved money. And he's now taking his hardworking entrepreneurial brains, energy, and is making Canada richer, not the United States. Sadly, I think this is what we're going to see more and more of. So, look, the days are gone when the United States can say, hey, we're the only game in town. There are a lot of great countries. Canada is much more open to migrants and refugees around the globe. Let's not forget that's where Elon Musk ended up first. And I mentioned the example of maybe no Apple, maybe no Google if we didn't have refugees, maybe Tesla and SpaceX and all that would be Canadian companies if we had this same mentality. Of course, Trump feels like, okay, if you're a white guy from South Africa, that's special. All of Africa bad, exception if you're a white guy from South Africa. So I guess if he'd had his way, Musk would have still gotten in. But this is, make no mistake about it, this is bad. This is bad for everyone. This is bad for people who, like myself, are conservative and believe in the conservative nature of America being inviting to people from around the globe. It's really bad for everyone unless you favor authoritarianism and you see, okay, here's a chance to get people angry. Because when people are angry and scared, which seeing shootings and murders from outsiders is scary, there's no doubt about it, they tend to rally around strongmen who say, forget the constitutional provisions, forget rights, I'm going to crack down. So this is basically bad news for our American economy. It's bad news for people who believe in traditional values of America, wanting the best and brightest and most ambitious, and people who are under attack in other countries. It's good news for authoritarians, unfortunately. So again, our sympathies go to the extended family. I might also point out, if you are looking to play the blame game, okay, you can blame people from so-called third world nations. You can blame the people who let this guy into the country, which was the Trump administration, the first one. But you can also blame a conservative culture that says we have to make guns readily available to everyone in the United States. There is a reason that in places like Japan and most of Europe, this doesn't happen very much. And it's because you can't just go to any store and pick up as many guns and as many bullets as you would as if you were at a candy store. And my friends, that's not because of a liberal permissiveness. It's because of a conservative culture that fetishizes guns and fetishizes gun ownership. And that's why we have so many gun deaths. And let's not forget the fact most gun deaths, most murders are not from migrants. They're not from refugees. They're not from people who just immigrated to the United States in the last 2 years. They're from people who grew up in America. That's where most gun deaths come from.